Hello, folks. I'm Chris Williams, and I'm going to have another live stream on tonight. We're going to be looking at creepy things in the night. We're going to be looking at, are werewolves real? Are there vampires? And why do you have aliens, cryptids on there? Are actual vampires? We're going to be looking at werewolves. Are vampires actually aliens, or werewolves aliens? We're going to be looking at those kinds of stories as well as others and just having some fun. We're going from the thing that the creatures of the night are actually real and that they might actually have some basis, or maybe no basis, who knows? Or maybe they're just magical. But first of all, we wait for people to gather into the chat. Let me go off and show you some artwork from my own upcoming graphic novel, Scumdogs. Here's my extreme 90s cover. This cover I did to harken back to the comic books of the 90s. It looks pretty good. As you know, the name of my graphic novel is Scumdogs. It's a parody of cartoons we all know and love when we were growing up. All those fond memories of watching them when we were kids. I'm making a parody book of it. The Scumdogs themselves, they're villains out to take over the world. They were former pro athletes who competed in superhuman sporting events known as the Scumdog Sports. Sporting events held with superhuman monsters as the athletes. They're called scum and dogs because they trade in their humanity for power. Either through science or through some more esoteric means, they become superhumanly powerful monsters. So not exactly the nicest guys around. What happens when they get banned from sports? They are going to try to take over the world. Now, the Scumdogs are a parody of various villains from 80s cartoons, and they fight their enemies in the Space Forces, who are basically G.I. Joe parodies. As you can see, my two main characters on this cover are Deathmug and Buick Starpoon. Deathmug is the purple guy with the metal mask. While he's fighting his archenemy Buick Starpoon, who's the guy with the pink pompadour hair. Now, Deathmug is a parody of various villains from 80s cartoons. If you see him, he looks like the villains from G.I. Joe, the leaders of Cobra. He's got a metal mask like Cobra Commander, that's a skull face, while he also has gold on him, like Serpentor from Cobra as well. And he's purple, like the Shredder from Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. While his archenemy Buick Starpoon is a G.I. Joe parody, which means him and his team all have a military specialty. But he's also, if you notice the uniform, he's also a parody of the space opera kind of hero character, like Zap Brannigan or James T. Kirk from Star Trek, or Buzz Lightyear, or even Buck Rogers, those kinds of characters. And his military specialty is that he's a captain in the Space Forces. While this guy over here with the mohawk, his name is Roadhog. His military specialty is that he's an army guy. Before he joined the Space Forces, he was part of the army. While this bald guy with the gun down here, in the blue uniform, his name is Beach Pounder. His military specialty is that he's a Marine. Before he joined up with Buick Starpoon, he was part of the Marines. While this guy back here in the red uniform firing off his weapons, his name is Blast Tank. His military specialty is that he's a heavy vehicle specialist, a tanker. Get it? Now, this cover is one of 3 different variant covers you'll be able to back when my Indiegogo goes live. It's not live yet, folks. I'm still working on the book. So just keep waiting for it. I'm working on it, but it's coming to you. Here we have Girl Friday. Girl Friday is a parody character. She's mostly she's the second in command to Buick Starpoon. She's basically a parody of the second in command kind of characters who hate their bosses and stuff like that. You get the idea. Girl Friday was put on the Wild Rangers, the second command of the Wild Rangers. That's the name of Buick Starpoon's team in the Space Forces. She was put on second command because her superiors in the Space Forces wanted her to babysit the team, because while the Wild Rangers saved the universe from the Scumdogs, they're just idiots. So they put her on the team. And she hates her job because she hates Buick Starpoon. Here we have Deathmug's henchman, because in all 80s cartoons, the main villain of the cartoon would have henchmen, and they'd be total idiots. These are my idiots. The blue guy with the top hat is Murder Mouth, and the pink guy down here is Sloppy. They do everything Deathmug orders them to do, but they're complete and utter idiots. They destroy everything in sight. Oh, by the way, folks, hit that like button for me because it helps me fight the algorithm, as well as please go share this video out on Twitter and Facebook. Here we have Hair Metal Doctor. He's a parody of Dr. Mindbender from G.I. Joe. My character is a mad scientist who's also been crossed over with a hair metal musician, because I thought that'd be awesome to have in my book. He thinks of all the mad gadgets and machines the scumdogs use to try and take over the world. And here we have Miss Breasty Melons. Miss Breasty Melons is a parody of the Baroness from G.I. Joe. But unlike the Baroness, she's a party girl who just wants to have fun. She only became a villain because she thought it'd be fun. Now, the Hair Metal Doctor pinup and the Miss Breasty Melons pinup will be included with other pinups in my graphic novel when you go back it on Indiegogo. It's coming to you, folks. It's not up on Indiegogo yet, but it is coming to you. But I will also get these pinups out to you on t-shirts for you to buy from Crypto Fashion as soon as I'm able to make them, okay? So there's that. Now I looked at this. Let's go exit out of these, and we'll go to Indiegogo real quick and check out if there's any new Indiegogos up. You got hit that like button if you have not yet, folks, because it helps me fight the algorithm. Now, here's Alien Alamo. It's made $85,396. That's doing very good. Aerith the Kindling War, Tape 2, Kindling War, has made over $2,600. Not too bad there. Let me go back this way, see if we can't get any new Indiegogos to come up. And see if we can't get it to come. Let me go this way. Here's this book here. There's Stomp 2 comic book, which has made $5,739. LaFay 5 has made $408. Not too bad there. The Mermaids comic book. Not doing too bad there either. Super Fantasy Girls has made $25. Just started. Got 7 days left. Not doing too bad there either. Now let me go over here. There's Alien Alamo. Let me do this. Let's see. Black Tiger has made $7,663. All right. Tribulation Task Force has made $96 with 45 days left. Sovereign Wolf Clandestiny has made $28,715. Havoc has made $3,763. Okay, not doing too bad on these books. All right. Crypturnals has made $10,795 with 10 days left. That's good right there. Dame Gang has made $7,700 with 48 days left. Creed Reimaginary 1 and 2 has made over $100,000. So go back it on Indiegogo. All right. That's not doing too bad. Now, I did say we were going to look at various alien cryptid stories tonight. Basically, vampires and werewolves. And we're asking, are they actually monsters of the night, or are they actually cryptids and maybe alien, or, well, UFOs and aliens and stuff? We're wondering about that tonight. Well, I'm not just going to look at vampires and werewolves. I'm also going to be looking at various other creatures, maybe Bigfoot, maybe a few cryptids, stuff like that. But basically talking them, are they magical or are they not? Are they aliens or whatever? Are cryptids part of this world, or are they from another universe? Or maybe I should say cryptids are from interdimensional. Either way, we'll be looking at those tonight. Yesterday, we looked at Mossman, the various Bigfoot-like creature from in Florida. We're looking at various stories there. Let's see. Let's maybe check this one out first. Oh, yeah, we looked at that yesterday, so there's nothing really here. Let me, just a moment. Upright, white-eyed confronts young campers in Oregon's high desert. white-eyed antlered entity. Huh? Okay, this sounds like another deer man sighting. Or it could be maybe something like a skinwalker. I'll be looking at those tonight as well. Two young boys are camping out in the Oregon High Desert near the Warm Springs Reservation when they are confronted by an upright, white-eared, antlered well that exits the river. I recently came across this story here, this whatever this is. I grew up in Central Oregon, and there's a reservation called Springs, something like that, about 2 or so hours from where I lived. I only mentioned that because a lot of people in my area have friends there, and a lot of the land in that area belongs to the tribe, the Confederate Tribes of Warm Springs. When I was a kid, we used to go camping up there, not on the reservation, of course, but in that area, and I met a lot of kids who grew up there. I got to know one kid really well. His name was like that. His name. Really well. And we ended up hanging out a lot with our families. Where in the area our folks got to know each other, so we'd all get in touch and camp out around the same time. We'd camp out for about 2 weeks, so we were out there for a long time. One year, Nolan and I were out there. I think we must have been like 12. We wanted to go out to the camp. They wanted to go out near the camp, huh? And they saw some weird creature. Okay, near the river, because we wanted to try night fishing. I think we must have been about a third of a mile from the main camp, far enough. Yeah. Do you think that what the creature they've encountered is a skinwalker or maybe some other supernatural creature? Maybe, who knows, it's antlered and stuff like that, and it looks like a walking animal. I think we must have been about a third of a mile from the main camp, far enough away that we couldn't hear or see anything. I also remember that we were messing around most of the day. I don't really remember much about it, but we ended up building a fire at some point. I was really impressed because he had this flint or something that he used to start. I'd never seen anyone do that before, so I thought it was pretty cool. I got him to teach me how to do it, and we lit some stuff on fire, which looking back was really stupid because it was the middle of summer. And if I remember right, well, warning was either at yellow or orange. Yeah, we lit some stuff on fire, which was stupid. Yeah, because you're not supposed to do that if there's the fire warnings and stuff. But thankfully, we didn't start anything major. And when it got dark, we sat around and talked about whatever it is 12-year-olds talk about. I don't really remember. What I do remember is that at some point, he looked over my shoulder, River, and, he asked me, River, if I could see something. Then the way our camp was set up, we were about 10 feet from the river, and we were at the widest points. So it was probably about 12 feet or to the other bank. It gets hot up there in the summer, but the water is still cold, is important. I think over my shoulder, and I could see something wading into the river on the other side from where we were. Looked like a deer. We couldn't really tell because of the fire. I got it to look closer, and I saw a pair of antlers. I figured it was a buck. I thought it was weird that it was wading into water, and it was definitely heading for us. Asked Nolan what he thought we should do. He's looking at the fire with this weird expression. He tells me to sit down and shut up, so I do, because I'd never seen him act that way before. He's whispering to me to ignore it and just to keep talking like we were. I couldn't think of anything to say. He was saying something about an episode of some show. I couldn't hear the deer coming through the water, so I wasn't really paying attention. I kept trying to see over his shoulder. Every time I did, he sort of hit me on the arm and make me look at him. I wasn't really scared. I remember I was just sort of confused. Then I hear the deer come out of the water, and I couldn't kind of make out it looked like. I realized it wasn't a deer because whatever it was walking on two legs. I started to get up. I was super freaked out, but Nolan just yanked me back and talked louder about the television show, and I could tell he was just as scared as I was. Even more. He leaned in and poked the fire with a rock and was whispered that whatever I do, can't speak to it. Could see it coming closer, and I stood right there behind Nolan's back. Was ready to piss my pants. I think I'd probably have run if I'd been alone, but I didn't want to leave Nolan, so I kept sitting really still and sneaking glances at it. It wasn't that tall, but the way it carried itself was just wrong. Like its center of balance was screwed up. Can't really describe it. It was kind of like it kept shifting too far forward. It just stood there behind Nolan for a long time, and eventually Nolan ran out of things to say. We just sat there for a second. The fire was making noise, but I I thought I could hear this thing talking in a really low voice, couldn't hear what it was saying, and I leaned forward a tiny little bit. I actually did piss my pants when it leaned forward too. I couldn't see its face, but saw its eyes were cloudy and milky. And if you want to know what they looked like, that scene in from Lord of the Rings where Frodo falls in that lake and all of the dead people are floating toward him, what its eyes looked like. So all I saw were those two white eyes floating above Nolan's head and the really vague shape and the antlers coming out of its head. Don't know what my face looked like, but at exactly the same time Nolan and I effing booked it out of there. And we ran nonstop until we got back to the main camp. My pants were soaked. I took them off as we were running and threw them in the bushes. We both stopped once we were in front of my dad's RV. Couldn't see anything chasing us. We stood there and caught our breath. I asked him what that thing was. He said he didn't know. He said his grandpa had only warned him that if anything ever came up to him when he was out in the desert, was never ever supposed to talk to it or listen to anything it had to say. I wanted to know if he'd heard it talking too. He said that the only thing he'd been able to understand was help you. I think ended up sleeping in the RV with my parents. Next night we went back and didn't see anything. This account reminds me of the Wendigo legends. There is a phrase that describes spirit of the lonely places, but it's also some connotations related to skinwalker stories. I'm not sure what these boys encountered, but yeah, it sounds like it wasn't anything you'd want around you. Well, it was an interesting story. So we talked about the creatures of the night tonight, or the aliens or the cryptids, whatever this thing was. It does seem to be magical, but was that only the creature basically making them think it was evil because it was experimenting on them? We wanted to study them and see what they do if they encountered it. It could very well have been some sort of alien that was using some sort of whatever it was to basically make them see it as a sort of antlered monstrosity. Now, maybe I should go looking for a few more skinwalker stories. Mysterious Mossman of Florida. Yeah, we looked at the Mossman cometh. We could also look at the Mossman of Florida right here real quick, but maybe after I look at a few skinwalker stories. Let's see. Skinwalker. Let's see. Yeah, these are the magical shape-shifting creatures that exist in folklore. So maybe we should just take a look at this. Skinwalkers and Canis, security guards, strange figures and stuff. Well, see strange figures. There's also profiling the Skinwalker, a sinister shapeshifter. The Skinwalker, dangerous and deadly. Hunt for the Skinwalker film review. All right, hunting the Skinwalker. Okay, I think. Let's see here. Mysterious dark highways. Places of skinwalkers. Let's take a look at this. I'm just going on the instance that, well, these supernatural creatures we see occasionally, or people do see, could they actually be something magical, or are they something scientific? Could they actually be aliens, or maybe they actually are shapeshifters? Could they, whatever they could be? We're going to read this story right here, folks. We're going to read this story on about these shape-shifting creatures now. Are they real, or are they actually what they are, magical? All right. Not too long ago, here on A Mysterious Universe, came forward with my own tales of brushes with the decidedly unexplained, seemingly paranormal. My article was put out with my intent of not only getting these troubling experiences off my chest, but also in the attempt to get some answers. One tale I related generated a particular amount of interest, comments, and personal mails. That is the case of my encounter with a group of people, beings, entities, whatever you want to call, which confronted me out on a dark, lonely highway in a vast, sprawling, expanse of highway passing through nothing but scrub wastelands and endless blackness. It is a case that has confounded me with some new leads and advice from readers. I have been coming to get possible new insights into what it was that I brushed against out on the road. For any of those who did, who did see my original article, I will reprint this account. This happened to me when I was just 18 years old. Before I was to head off to college, I had decided to take a road trip from my hometown in California to Denver, Colorado to visit a friend of mine there. I did not have much money, and my parents, though it was a bit of a whimsical, thought it was a bit that it was a bit whimsical, but they had let me go through it with anyway. I thought at the time that I could handle myself. I was a big man and pretty muscular. I suppose I have somewhat intimidating enough presence. Even then, I officially thought I could not run into too many problems along the way that no one would mess with me. It was just to be a drive out there, after which I would stay 2 days and then come back. There was no real reason to think it was particularly bad idea at all. Or, yeah, it was not a bad idea. Along the way, somewhere in the wilds of Nevada, it became obvious that the drive was to be a lot longer than I had expected. I had left my home too late and I was getting tired and sleepy. If you ever taken this drive, you might know that there are vast swaths out there. There is not a soul in sight for miles around. It might as well be the surface of the moon. Was really not much to see along this route. It was dark and empty, and with the endless, monotonous road ahead and my hypnotizing lane lines flickered by, I caught myself nodding off at the wheel. Yeah, that's interesting, huh? So what do you think this guy's going to encounter? He said he was going to encounter skinwalkers, or at least what he thought they were. He just sounded like he actually knows what they were, right? Really. I can reread this again. That part again. It might well be the surface of the moon. There was really not much to see along the route. It was dark and empty, and with an endless, monotonous road. Wait a minute, did it? This is all very interesting, huh? With what this guy encountered. So this guy was alone out there, and then he encounters this weird thing, and he knows it's maybe intelligent. Well, to him, it looked like it was a bunch of intelligent people with some very weird very weird things. So what do you think they actually experienced? What this guy actually experienced? In this monotonous road ahead in thousand lanes. Let's see. This is interesting. And where was I exactly before I started talking about this? Let me get back to it. I think I'll just do this. I left my home too late and I was getting tired and sleepy. If you've ever taken this drive, then you might know that there are vast swaths where there is not a soul for miles around. It might as well be the surface of the moon. There was really not much to see. This route, it was dark and empty, and with the endless, monotonous road ahead and the hypnotizing lane lines flickered by, I caught myself nodding off at the wheel on several occasions. I did not really have the money for a hotel to stay at. I barely had enough money for food and gas. So I decided to pull over at a highway rest area off the highway and take a nap in my car. I only planned to sleep for a couple of hours and then head off along that dark, desolate highway once more. The area was actually rather remote with nothing around, and at the time there was no other vehicles there at this rest stop, giving it all a rather bleak and imposing atmosphere that made me wonder if it was a good idea to be there or not. But I ended up parking and putting my chair back and falling asleep, even as I turned over the idea of just continuing on my way in my head. I awoke to a tapping on my window, jumped awake, and it was light enough that at first I thought it was early morning. I was somewhat startled seeing a young man standing there peering at me. He was a skinny young man who looked to be perhaps early 20s or late teens, not much older than myself at the time, and he was dressed normally, certainly not a vagrant or appearing particularly threatening in any noticeable way, although I immediately wondered why he was out there in the middle of nowhere and what he wanted. He then simply calmly said, "Open the door," and at this I immediately had a distinct sense of palpable menace, some identifiable feeling of threat, and I was glad that I had locked the doors of my vehicle, and I simply said no. He demanded again, "Open the door," this time in almost a growl, and I soon noticed that there were two others with him, lurking in the background, and that there were also a pickup truck nearby, which I assumed to be theirs. Upon this truck was mounted a spotlight that was turned on and pointed at the ground, which was why the whole area seemed to be surprisingly illuminated. Actually, it was still in the middle of the night. This is where things get bizarre indeed, thinking that it was just some kids screwing around. I took out a knife I had brought with me. I just held it up there where you could see it, which I guess was pretty stupid in retrospect. But I remember I was just a dumb teenager and thought this would maybe scare them away. And it in fact had quite the opposite effect. The young man became absolutely infuriated and let out what I can only describe as an animalistic howl or wail, quite chillingly inhuman in its intensity as he violently shoved my car to send the vehicle quaking, and I actually felt it lift from the ground a bit. It was breathtakingly horrifying, totally out of nowhere. I was jarring, frighteningly display of strength I never would have expected from a person, let alone someone with such a slim frame. It is hard to describe just the amount of alarm at that moment. This is when I noticed the two other people with him in the background had something quite off about them. I could see their eyes were either glowing or reflecting light like those of a cat. I don't know which either way you might recognize it as something that human eyes do not do. It also seemed that they were, I don't know how to describe it, blurry. Do you know how when you are watching a TV program with bad transmission, the people on the screen look jumpy and distorted? Can you imagine what it was like, that they seemed distorted, broken, and vague, as if infused with some sort of static? Was almost as if they were tenuous, having trouble with staying in focus, staying in reality, having difficulty existing. Or that they were quivering or moving to and fro at great speed. It was really strange, and although I suppose I'm a decent writer, I find it quite hard to fully describe in words. The next thing I knew, one of them, a girl around the same age, well, the man, who was now pointing and scowling like a rabid dog, his visage twisted and contorted beyond the thin pane of window separating us, was suddenly just there beside him. One moment she was standing in the background some distance away, and then she was just right there in the blink of an eye. It was abrupt and disorienting, to say the least. Then she also said, "Open the door now." This is when I snapped out of my shock. Interesting. This could actually be an alien encounter. These aliens basically shapeshifted, and they were basically testing him whether or not he'd come out of there. Or they might have done something truly horrible to him. Is when I snapped out of my shock, started my car. I didn't think it would start, thinking that surely they must have done something to it to cripple it, and that I would be stuck there in its middle prison until they smashed their way in. Someone came along to help, which was a slim possibility considering the sheer emptiness of the road and the fact that the chances that a few vehicles passing by in the night would even know something was wrong was a remote possibility at best. My genuine surprise, the car did start, and I tore out of there as fast as I could. And as I did so, the spotlight in the pickup truck immediately sprang to life, sprang up to a home in on me, billowing in its brightness and following the car with perfect precision. Stepped on the gas, and as I did so, I was shocked to see that one of them, not the original man or woman, probably either one or even another hiding in the shadows, who I had not seen, was running alongside my car. I think it is important to mention that at this point I was almost at the actual 40 miles per hour highway, not steadily picking up speed, perhaps going 40 miles an hour at that moment. Yet this person was another young man, easily pacing me in the spotlight, pierced forward to track me as he ran, barely even looking tired. He reached out to knock on my window, and it was all too totally strange and frightening that I remember I let out a scream, something that I usually do not do, and which I could probably cut on one hand how many times I've done it. I reached the highway and picked up speed. He tried to keep up with me, banging on my window the whole time with increasing force, and probably made up to around 50 miles per hour before he finally fell behind and faded into the darkness. It was all absolutely mind-boggling. I just drove off as fast as I could, my foot heavy on the pedal. And although the persistent spotlights stayed on me until I was out of sight, the truck oddly did not give chase. I hauled ass until I reached an off-ramp and into a populated place, and I must have sat there at a dinner for about 3 hours, shaking and trembling at the whim of the adrenaline that was coursing through me. I could not keep my hand still. I must have looked like a mess. I remember the waitress asking if I was all right on numerous occasions, but I lied and said that I was just frightened because I had almost crashed out on the road. I didn't know why I didn't tell anyone or call the police. It is probably because I didn't think anyone would believe me. Hell, I barely believed it. Also, the fact that I was eager to reach my destination and did not want to deal with this hassle, especially since I was in one piece despite my rattled state. I never did tell my friend Colorado about it, and I indeed had never told anyone at all about it until now. I was terrified to tell anyone of what really happened. This may all sound very dramatic. I assure you it did happen. I am not exaggerating to this day. It is rather traumatic to think about. I truly feel I was not meant to make it out of there alive, that I should have died, or even worse, at that rest area, my life was surely in some form of danger. I often find myself wondering how many other travelers along that desolate stretch of highway, confronted by those odd strangers, and what would have happened to me if I had opened the door they had demanded. To this day, it gives me duress to bring up these memories. This is what I wrote, and it was been an incredible personal, bizarre, and traumatic experience that has haunted and consumed me ever since. I have always wrestled with answers within my head, trying to come to terms with it. It fit in with nothing I knew of and defied all of my attempts to come to grips with it. It seemed to occupy a realm of the unexplained with which I had no previous experience or knowledge. What were these things terrorizing me, and what did they want? Why did they go about things the way they did? Were there any more people who had ever quite had the same kind of experience that I had? These were questions which I swirled through my mind and eluded easy answers, and I sense that I still do. After I published my unusual experience, I was immediately put at ease at the rather strong support for me coming forward with the admittedly rather dramatic but very true account. Were many theories that came forward, both my comments section and numerous personal mails sent from myself. Well, saying they were skinwalkers and maybe aliens. Because it does sound like an alien case, don't you think? It with that spotlight? Very odd. But everything else sounds like other accounts from skinwalkers as well. So there could be a variety of things that this guy has seen. Maybe they were. So what do you think about this, folks? Very entertaining. Came forward with my comic section and numerous personal mails sent to myself, including everything from mundane to the far out. For some, it was just a regular group of sadistic individuals out running amok, possibly on some sort of powerful drug. Come on, what kind of drug makes you run that fast? To stimulate some of the weird phenomena and abilities I witnessed. For others, it was anything from vampires to aliens to really everything in between. One possibility repeatedly put forward to me was that I had encountered beings known as skinwalkers, which I had heard of but never really known much about or even had an interest in until now. While I have never really delved into the aspect of the world of weird before, the numerous replies that I received suggesting this possibility compelled me to look into it further. I had never even considered the possibility of skinwalkers before, but I thought it was worth a look. Since every other avenue I had pursued had led me to nothing, and there was no other phenomenon that seemed to really fit, what I found was, while not conclusive at all, rather eye-opening to say the least. And as I tirelessly tried to track down similar stories, accounts concerning skinwalkers in my search across forums and articles scattered across the web for answers that might shed some light on what I went through, I found a spooky amount that at the very least shared enough traits to give me pause. There's that as well, folks. For those who are not familiar with the concept of skinwalkers, they are creatures that feature Native American legend. Legend. In particular among the Navajos of the southwestern United States, amongst who they are called Ye Noda Lushi. Let's just call them skinwalkers, which translates roughly into with it, he goes on all fours. Well as in comparable legends among the Hopi, Utes, the Utes, the Hopi, and other tribes, other of these guys. These entities are said to be exceptionally, powerful shape-shifting witches or medicine men who have achieved vast supernatural powers such as supernatural strength, speed, power to change into the form of other people, animals such as coyotes, wolves, foxes, owls, or crows, or also horrifyingly half-animal beasts. To become a skinwalker, it is said that it is necessary to perform some act of pure evil, killing a beloved family member, and that once transformed, they seek to create suffering and fear to sow terror upon which they draw power. They are not nice. In other words, one Nevada anthropologist, Dan here, who specializes in the study of Southwestern Native Americans, has said of this. Skinwalkers are purely evil in intent. No expert on it, but some general views that skinwalkers do all sorts of terrible things. They become people sick. They commit murders. They are grave robbers, necrophiliacs. Skinwalkers are regarded as selfish, greedy, untrustworthy. They are greedy and evil people who must kill a sibling or other relative to be initiated as a skinwalker. They supposedly can turn into were animals and can travel in supernatural ways. There are numerous variations of what these sinister skinwalkers are capable of. In some tales, they are said to be able to incapacitate a victim with fear by simply looking at them. In other traditions, they can literally steal the skin a person and wear it around like a suit, essentially possessing them. They are also variously described as being able to control the minds of other victims, hold them in thrall, drive them insane, cause potent, terrifying hallucinations. They are usually believed to be attracted to the speaking of the true names, after which they will lock onto and hunt down the unfortunate one who has spoken of them. Indeed, it is often said as bad luck in fighting dangers just to speak of them. And for this reason, the skinwalkers are not typically openly discussed among natives, especially with outsiders. With many stories and tales of the creatures kept secret within the tribe, however, these native people, for the most part, seem to consider these creatures to be quite well and real indeed, stepping beyond mere myth and folklore. So what does my experience have to do with skinwalkers? I will go into more detail, but you have to been paying attention. Well, like other stories, people who have encountered skinwalkers will basically be sleeping in their car at night, and they'll be woken up by this guy. They'll get startled by the guy just outside of their car. Then they'll drive away, but they'll find that the guy is basically keeping pace with their car, which is much like what happened in this story. But this story also has aspects of other things like vampires, as well as werewolves and aliens as well. So there is something strange going on here that I find very, very odd. What is with this? What is with this, huh? You might have already noticed right off the bat some similarities between some of the lore and what I went through. First, there is the location with me being Nevada, the time practically smack in the middle of alleged skinwalker territory and ground zero for many eyewitness accounts. Also, one very prevalent theme in these legends, at least to my understanding, is that they rather enjoy instilling fear, that they even seem to feed off of it. What could these people I met with possibly have wanted other than to simply terrify me? They wanted to kill me. They certainly could have. Of that, I have no little doubt. He was asleep in my car. They caught me off guard. They had me at their mercy. They had frightening power, yet they chose to intentionally calmly walk up to me and then proceed to show me these displays of rudeness that seemed to have had no other practical purpose other than to completely freak me out. If they wanted to scare me out of my wits, then mission accomplished. If they wanted to really get at me, then they dropped the ball. Is that possible? Honestly, yeah, it does sound like this is what they wanted. They rocked my vehicle off its wheels. But did not break in. They showed supernatural movements. Did not break in. They showed supernatural movements, strength, speed, and other features, yet did not wholly attack in any significant way. When I fled in my car, they did not pursue, except, of course, for those one that ran alongside my vehicle. But he made only a passing ineffectual attempt to bang on my vehicle. And why did the truck not give chase, opting rather to simply shine its bright, mysterious spotlight upon me? I cannot help but think that much of this was orchestrated to scare me rather than directly harm me. Although I, of course, could be deadly wrong. I don't pretend to understand any of it. But if it was all to terrorize me, then it certainly worked, and it fits neatly into the idea of the skinwalkers who enjoy this sort of thing and feed off of it, conjuring fear in their victims by many accounts. It's intoxicating to them. So maybe I was just a quick fix. Who knows? The fact that I seemed even more scary in my mind than I should have been also could feed into the purported ability to sow and exaggerate fear. I have also been doing a good amount of delving into the other aspects of skinwalker sightings, pouring through forums and eyewitness accounts, and I have, to my surprise, found other correlations to my own experience. Another is that there actually is a surprising amount of lore that describes these creatures as appearing at windows, or often those at vehicles, and simply peering through or tapping or banging on them, just as what happened on my own. Encountered other reports concerning vehicles describe, skinwalkers as flat out attacking them, although similarly to mine, unable to actually fully break in. There are quite a few specific reports I have uncovered pertaining to these oddities, which have struck me with how similar they seem in respects to what I saw in this regard. One report was posted by a Reddit user called Lightning, who came forward with a harrowing encounter of what seemed to be a skinwalker accosting the vehicle of his Navajo aunt. According to the aunt, when she was younger, she used to take out her friends in her van to go touring around the reservation, go hanging out in the middle of nowhere just for the kicks, the thrill of it all. One night during one of these hell-raising excursions, she claimed that the vehicle had been suddenly pelted with rocks that seemed to come from nowhere. Out of the black night, shortly after this, something large and heavy was reported to have landed directly upon the van from above, and then proceeded to have jumped down to rock the van violently. When they tried to start the car, they found that they couldn't, and then the clawed hand apparently scratched roughly across the windshield, but it did not have, or could not actually break in. Whatever the thing was, then reportedly jumped down to the ground, made its way to the driver's side window, where it merely put its face right up near the glass and peered in at the terrified vehicle occupants. Everyone in the van began to pray, and after a few minutes of just looming outside the window, breathing heavily again, the glass stuck off to where their way into, well, away from them. Perhaps through it somehow, or maybe just bored at that point, the van was miraculously able to be started, and then the group took it off as fast as it could. So this creature was able to basically stop their car, and they couldn't get away. So that sounds like something from an alien story. And whatever this creature was, does sound like it could be a skinwalker, because it was tapping on the glass. It was just there to basically terrorize them and just have some fun with them. Could be something we've seen before as well. Very interesting. Could also have been a vampire or a werewolf. It's some sort of unhuman creature, but they don't really describe what they saw. Like in that other account we read, where that boy encountered that antlered thing, he can't really describe what he actually saw. They don't give any real details of what they saw there at all, do they? During the encounter, the alleged entity tried to forcibly break in. Yeah, no point during the encounter did the alleged entity tried to forcibly break into the vehicle or smash in the glass, even though it appears to have been fully capable of, well, it sounds like these people encountered a deer man. This sounds like a deer man as well. But it appears it could be something else as well. It was capable, let me get back. Yeah, it was capable. It was capable of doing so. Although not totally the same as what happened to me, there are certainly some glaring similarities here, enough to make my hair stand up on end anyway. It could very well be that they encountered something. There are quite a few reports of Skinwalker accosting lone vehicles along remote roads in the region, often displaying great speed, strength, ferocity, and stamina, while also doing so, and certainly at the very least sharing some DNA with that. I myself experienced one Reddit user. Yeah. It could also be that they encountered ultra-terrestrials, maybe something like a Fairfolk was just screwing with them. It just sounded like, do these skinwalkers, do various creatures talk to each other? Do aliens talk with various ultra-terrestrials? Do the skinwalkers talk with the ultra-terrestrials as well? Who knows? A user called Iron shared a rather frightening account concerning, called Jesus, Iron Jesus. All right. Shared a rather frightening account concerning an extremely fast, a Reddit user called Iron Jesus shared a rather frightening account concerning an extremely fast-moving apparent skinwalker. Oh, fast one. One Reddit user called Iron Jesus. Yeah. One Reddit user called Iron Jesus shared a rather frightening account concerning an extremely fast-moving apparent skinwalker that appeared to be very human in appearance. Just what I saw was taking a bus with his sports team members, though a remote area through an Indian reservation. I will include his full account. Oh, wow, that is something, isn't it? When we crossed the reservation's border, I noticed the bus driver had sped up and was now going about 85 miles per hour. I thought this was a little weird because he never exceeded the speed limit, at least not in my high school career. For some reason, I couldn't fall asleep like the rest of my teammates. I just sat there in the back of the bus staring out across the desolate desert landscape that was lit up with the full force of the moon. As I looked out, I could see a figure running towards the bus at an angle of pursuit. And I kept up with the bus at 85 miles per hour. This figure got closer. I saw that it was a humanoid form. As a matter of fact, it looked exactly like a human, only that the face was painted half black and half white with glowing eyes like a rabbit's eyes reflecting light from a spotlight. I immediately thought, holy crap, it's a skinwalker. The skinwalker ran up to the edge of the road and just kept up pace with the bus, hurling sagebrush and rocks while staring at me. After I made eye contact with the thing, I could not look away. It was as if something was holding my head, eyes in place. The skinwalker just smiled at me, this inhuman smile, then went ear to ear, showing crooked yellow pointed teeth. I felt like I was going to throw up and I was panicking through the whole ordeal. The skinwalker started to crumple down on all fours, still keeping up with the bus. I could see its bones crack and reform. The hair started appearing all over the skinwalker's body, and in about 3 seconds was now a coyote. and it ran off back into the desert out of view. As soon as it was gone, I ran to the onboard bathroom and puked a mixture of food and blood. I didn't want to tell anyone for fear they would think I was crazy. I confided in my Navajo friend. She told me that I need to see the chief, who also happened to be a friend of mine, and I got a blessing. I saw him the next school day in the parking lot. He just came up to me and mumbled something Navajo while waving a feathered scepter-like thing, and turned around, got in his truck, and drove away. To this day, I've never seen another skinwalker. Now, I do personally recall crooked. Yeah, I do not recall crooked yellow teeth, although I could not see them. And 85 miles per hour is certainly much faster than the being that I encountered seemed to be capable of. But then again, maybe it was only seemed that way. Maybe it just let me go, even though he could have gone faster. Maybe, I don't know. I also did not also certainly feel like puking, though anyway, maybe he meant to let me go or whatever reason. Maybe it was not their true prey, but rather a target for some other inscrutable purpose. Notice the detail of the glowing eyes in this report. It turns out that there are actually many reports of skinwalkers having glowing eyes. In my own experience, I perceived them to have either glowing eyes or ones that reflected light like those of a cat. One Navajo writer said that skinwalker eyes at night, that her eyes glowed red like hot coals, and many eyewitness reports mentioned something along these lines. It's certainly rather curious indeed. Yeah, it's very interesting. Another report concerns of a woman who delivered a newspaper around Navajo Reservation. One day in the very early morning hours, she claimed that there had been a scratching sound and emanating from the side of her vehicle, and her baby slept calmly in the back seat. The door that apparently was abruptly torn open, and a beastly creature with glowing eyes appeared in the void, which then reached for the sleeping baby. The woman slammed the door closed again and floored it, but the menacing entity managed to stubbornly cling to the side of the vehicle as it tried to rip the door open. Once more, it was not until she reached a relatively well-lit locale of a non-all-night convenience store that whatever it was finally relented and vanished away into the desert night. Even law enforcement officers, having been immune to such bizarre experiences, one New Mexico highway patrol officer claims that he was on a stretch of highway south of Gallup, New Mexico, when he came face to face with something he could not explain. As he was on patrol, the officer claims that a creature wearing a white ghostly mask ran up to his car at great speeds, purportedly easily and effortlessly pacing the patrol car at high speeds. A few days later, the same officer claimed that he had been having a coffee with another highway patrolman, and the conversation veered towards the odd experience. The original witness then found that the officer had a remarkable similar encounter with a spectral, ghoul-faced person who had appeared out of the darkness run alongside the car at high speeds at least 65 miles per hour, a desert stretch of highway, before running back into the Badlands. Another account was given by a Reddit user, Joe, who claims that one night after collecting firewood with his uncle, they had gotten into their pickup truck to head back. As they were about to leave, Joe felt an ominous sense of being watched, and then they heard a mysterious tapping on the vehicle's rear window. Spooked, the two started the car and headed off, at which point the thick, abrupt truck abruptly sunk down as if something very large and heavy had climbed onto the back, while the incessant tapping on the window continued unabated, even glowing steadily more insistent. While Joe was compelled to look back to see what it was, his uncle allegedly warned against it, telling him it would just keep driving as they chanted a series of Navajo prayers. At some point, whatever it was seemed to have decided it had enough and jumped right back out of the car, out of the moving vehicle, into the blackness of the bleak desert. Night early, when Joe later asked his uncle why they hadn't just tried to shake the thing off the road, the uncle would reply, because it wasn't alone. It wasn't alone. Sound familiar at all yet? I will come back to this again, but let's talk about some of the other details of the case that seem to be reflected in these accounts of supposed skinwalkers. For instance, one is the presence of what I perceived to be eyes that were glowing or reflecting light, and as it turns out, this is not unusual at all. For skinwalker reports, the unearthly wailing or howling I heard from the one at the car window is also not uncommon for skinwalker reports, and they are seemingly quite capable of producing surreal howls that will chill one to the core. There's also the wavering, distinct, almost flickering forms of the people in the background I saw in my case, which seems to fit in with the lore that skinwalkers find it easier to maintain an animal form than a human form. Then there is the fact that, to my surprise, these reports do not always involve a single lone skinwalker, but rather what appears to be a group or pack, which is something that I find keenly interesting considering my own odd account. In 1983, a family of four were driving through a Navajo reservation along Route 160 when they all had the undeniable distinct and dreadful feeling that they were being tailed. When they rounded a bend in the road, they had to slow down the vehicle, and that was when something jumped out from the darkened bush at them. Interestingly, this strange thing seemed to be rather human in appearance, or at least pretending to be. One of the witnesses would say of this frightening encounter. It was black and hairy and was eye level with the cap. Whatever this thing was, it was wore a man's clothes. It had on a white and blue checkered suit and had long pants. Its arms were raised over its head, almost touching the top of the cap. It looked like a hairy man or a hairy animal in men's clothing, but it didn't look like a man like an ape or anything. Its eyes were yellow and its mouth was open. The whole family later reported at that point, and time seemed to slow down somewhat, as if we're all in a slippery dream. In this instance, they were able to elude whatever malignant presence was stalking them through the desolate stretch of bleak highway. But what is really interesting is that what happened several days later at their home, Flagstaff, Arizona. One evening after the incident, the family woke to the sound of what seemed like the thrumming of drums echoing all about. And when they looked outside, they claimed they could see shadowy figures looking about the dark periphery of their property. These strange intruders were pushed up right against the property fence and seemed quite eager to enter, but could not. Whatever this band of threatening strangers were, they apparently tried to push at the fence, but could not gain entry, no matter how hard they tried. After which they began chanting in some unknown arcane tongue. They never did pass the barrier and melted into the darkness as the family cowered in fear within their home. A Navajo woman later claimed that the group of intruders had been skinwalkers and that they had specifically targeted the family for some unknown reason, although they had, ultimately been thwarted. Yet another strange account, speaking of a group of dog-headed humans that went running around Navajo reservation, night smoking cigarettes. This all seems to show that they perhaps do work in groups. This sounds like the Skinwalker Ranch. But the most baffling relatively report, as far as my own experience goes, comes from a witness who came forward to contact me directly, and this one that so many eerie connections to my own case that is quite interesting to me and really hard to ignore. The incident reportedly happened during precisely the same time period it had happened to me in 1990, while mine was in 1991, in roughly the same general vicinity along Interstate 180 through northern Nevada, and almost seems as if it could be the same strange group who tormented me. To this admittedly unverified report, the witness was traveling from out of state through Nevada, just as I did, when he came across a large, bulky pickup truck, stopped halfway, blocking the road. As he approached, he could see the several figures traipsing out and about it in the dim night outside their vehicle, engaged in some unknown activity, and thinking there was perhaps a problem, slowed down to get a better look. It was then that the young man, who seemed to be dressed in rather normal clothing, explosively dashing out towards his vehicle at an apparent rabid rage. This witness claimed that there had been at least two others at the scene, and that they seemed to have had glowing eyes as they looked on. Terrified, the witness tore away as fast as he could and said that the one who had approached managed to keep up with his vehicle up to around 60 miles per hour before giving up. Most bizarrely of all, the pickup truck shot out a spotlight which tracked him as he drove off. In addition to the time frame and location, this is so similar to my own experience that I was flabbergasted. And I still wonder if this is really true or just someone who read my report and is yanking my chain. As much as I wish to remain anyone out there with a similar experience, this one seems to be a bit too on the mark. But could it be significant, or is this a lead to too good to be true, or a clever trolling on my experience? Speaking of that damn spotlight, that has always been a sticking point with me, is to my experience. What was with that spotlight? What was its significance? Spookily, there have been few readers have chimed in saying that it sounds like they were utilizing a hunting technique called spotlighting, of which one contact of mine explained rather ominously in relation to my case. Also, there was something I wanted to tell you in my previous email that I feared would sound too dramatic, but I think it's important I mention it here. I grew up in rural Kentucky, and it wasn't common for people to mount strong lights on the back of their trucks like the one you described. They would go out at night and train the light on deer, and the animals would stare at the source of light without moving. This method is called spotlighting. It is highly illegal and only done late at night. Whenever someone went out at night with a light like that on the truck, it meant one thing: they were hunting. Is that what they were doing, hunting me? Or if so, why let me go? And I can only think of it as if it is letting me go, as they seem so capable of overpowering me at any moment. It adds a whole new veneer of weirdness to it all. Regardless of the answer to that, or veracity of any of these accounts, it also had come to my attention that the area where I had my encounter was the location of a sort of strange unsolved deaths, vanishings during the late 80s and early 90s, something that was totally unaware of until I shared my original account of this. Here was contacted with the pertinent information. Even more chillingly, most of these cases seem to have happened along Interstate 180 through northern Nevada, and specifically around the area of the small remote town of Nevada, which I realized is just about where I was at the time. Most of these cases remain unsolved, and it makes me think that there's perhaps a reason for that. Well, I understand that there are several serial killers out there, and that disappearances happen along barren, lonely stretches of highway all the time. What is the significance? Is that there should be highway at the time should be unexplained spots of them in precisely the same location as my own experience, and within around the same time frame, considering the location of these events and the numerous reports of weirdness from the region to roughly mention what I saw myself. Is there something beyond our understanding at work here? Does it have anything to do with skinwalkers? I really wish I knew. It is all rather extraordinarily well connected that it really what do you think about it, folks? It is extraordinarily well connected. Now, I am not saying that I have come to conclusion that what I saw was a pack of skinwalkers out hunting me. This is just one avenue of thought that I have pursued that has proven to pull up enough weird little details and matching oddities to raise an eyebrow with me. I really would like a pat of rational explanation for the fact. The matter is that what I saw goes beyond that. There is no rational explanation that I can find to any of it. I have been forced to look at other accounts of witnesses who perhaps went through it what I did, and the closest thing that I have come to is skinwalkers, a pack of them, up to no good and with an unknown dark agenda. We may never fully understand. Well, we may understand whether this is true or not. I do not know. I wonder if I witnessed something from beyond the realm of the explained out there in those desert badlands, and if it wasn't perhaps skinwalkers who harassed me out there, that desolate stretch of dusty highway, I could be way off. And I know it must seem crazy, but I've seen enough of my continued research and influx of contacts to make me at least mull it over and give it some thought. If what I saw really was such chance skinwalkers, then it raises the possibility that they are out there in packs, and they are certainly up to no good, perhaps being responsible for untold numbers of vanishes and unexplained deaths in the region. I often wonder if I could have ended up as such, or if they perhaps wanted me to escape for some reason. Although what that could possibly be, I do not know. I am merely searching for answers here, but I must admit that that could possibly be eludes me. I am merely searching for answers here, but I must admit that it has all left me rather intrigued. What do you think? So, very interesting, huh? So far, what we've read. Let's see. Yeah, they could have taken him, but as I said here, if I could have ended up, perhaps wanted me to escape for some unknown reason. Although what that could possibly be, I do not know. I'm really searching for answers here, but I must admit, has all left me rather intrigued. So much of it sinks in with what I saw with when nothing else seems to quite fit. If this is all nothing and a bunch of bunk, then I would happily discard for a pat of mundane or rational answers. But such an answer has not been forthcoming in the slightest. It was indeed skinwalkers. Then what did they want? Why did they let me live? And what could have become of me if I had stepped out of the car as asked? I may never. You don't know. He doesn't know. In the end, I don't really know what I saw. I've spent a great amount of time trying to come up with grips with it, and I stand to contemplate and track it down, any strange reports with possible connections to what I saw. And these are some of my findings. Does it mean that what I saw was a band of malicious skinwalkers out prowling the desert night? I suppose it does not indeed, with skinwalkers being a phenomenon I have never written of before and never really had much interest in or knowledge of. All was rather sternly indeed. However, what these people were that were not normal. Of that I am sure. Whether they were skinwalkers, vampires, or something else, there there is something rather spooky in the idea that out there in these desolate desert badlands, there is at least one group of sinister, possibly supernatural things out in them, out on the hunt, prowling across vast, uh, uninhabited wastelands with a mysterious agenda we may never know, and an undisclosed number of victims. If there is anyone reading this who has any particular information to this phenomenon of their own story to tell, then please feel free, to contact me. Interesting. Very interesting, huh? This has come to the end of this live stream, folks, and we had some fun reading that, huh? We talked about, we're going to talk about these creatures of night, the vampires or werewolves. What could they possibly be? Could they be aliens or cryptids? We talked about skinwalkers and stuff like that, and various other monsters. We don't know if the other thing was anything more than what it was. These various creatures of the night that people have encountered. But I'm going to thank you all for joining me. Please go and subscribe to my YouTube channel. Read comics, they're bad for you, okay? The there is misspelled. Make sure you're still subscribed. Hit that like button for me because it helps me fight the algorithm so more people can see my videos. Because fighting the algorithm, every time you hit that bell, hit that like button, it's like think of it as basically giving me something else, like if I were in a boat and I needed more oars to paddle. Fighting the algorithm by hitting that like button gives me another oar and another paddle for me to fight against it. So feel free to hit it and stuff. As well as leave some comments down below. I love to hear from you guys. As well as please hit that bell and hit the part of the bell that gives you all future notifications for my videos. As well as please go share this video on Twitter and Facebook. Also, please go over to Stitch Together Picks. Stitch Together Picks is a YouTube channel with a great host. You're going to love his reviews of movies. He does such great reviews that they are just going to leave you with a good feeling after you've watched them. That's Stitch Together Picks. As well as please go over to Creepy Little Book and subscribe to him too. He does short videos talking about high strangeness, but he also does live streams every night. He live streams on weekdays at 12:30 a.m. and weekends at 10:30 p.m. and stuff like that. So he talks about aliens and ghosts, and you learn so much from his live streams about such weird things. Also, please go over and subscribe to my Rumble channel. It's at rumble.com. The name of my Rumble channel is Comic Freak. Also go over to BitChute and subscribe to my BitChute channel. It is also named Comic Freak. Remember, folks, I'll be back again tomorrow around 5 o'clock or 6 o'clock or 11 o'clock p.m. for another live stream. Well, 5 o'clock or 6 o'clock 5 o'clock or 6 o'clock or 11 o'clock for another live stream. I'm Chris Williams from the Scumdogs Kennel.